Hi, Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper, back with another unboxing, and this time I'm unboxing it deep in the bowels of the warehouse. I'm doing a massive sorting project here. So what happens when I buy these collections is I open them up, sometimes I'm able to record them and share the history through an unboxing video. But then what has to happen is I have to sort the items out, as you might imagine, and I tried to sort similar items together. So council shoulder patches, items from jamborees, summer camp patches, merit badges. I have little tubs for each of those areas. And that's what I want to show you today as I unbox this is I want to show you the process of going through and sorting everything out into those areas. Now I'll still try to include a little bit of the history lesson that I try to do with my unboxing videos, but I just wanted you guys to be able to see this. All right, here we go. All right, this package came to me from Pennsylvania, so I have cut the bottom of it. Let me just slide things out and we will see it just as it was in the box coming to me. All right, got a little smaller box right here. This feels pretty heavy. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe we can wait and show that in a second. All right, so I can obviously see we have a red vest here, scout uniform, and I can already tell we have a couple different generations because this dark green Explorer merit badge sash is definitely from the time period of the 1950s based on the merit badges and then also this dark green color. But that does not match with a tan uniform shirt. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what we've got. Well, again, sorting, right? So I have a sort over here for merit badge sashes. I can put that there. And then not surprisingly, somebody went to Philmont. These beautiful Philmont belts. This is a size 36. And it's got a nice little belt on there. Really doesn't look like it's been worn very much. So, again, talk about recycling. Somebody else who's going to Philmont would really like to wear that. In fact, my daughter is going to be on staff this summer at Philmont. So I've got a place for that. I'll put it over here just for the time being. I get a lot of merit badge sashes in collections, and I don't know if you can see by the light here, but this one has been soiled, which is kind of a good thing, because if you're in the National Honor Society, the Camping Society of the Boy Scouts, you probably ought to have a dirty sash. So I'm going to take this guy and set him over here. I have a little pile of items I'm going to wash. Then we have some neckerchiefs. This says 1986 bicentennial, actually of the Statue of Liberty. Or was this a centennial? I was alive in 1986. Yeah, the centennial, 100th anniversary. I actually have a coin that my mom and dad got me from the U.S. Mint. Here's a Cub Scout neckerchief, Philmont neckerchief, which would definitely go with what we just saw. This is probably a troop neckerchief that's been worn a little bit. And then again, a more modern merit badge sash. So this sash definitely goes with that tan shirt. And on the back, they've sewn their rank patches. This is something, honestly, I don't see very often. I see this in really old sashes where they would use the back of the sash to decorate. This is sort of goes against official policy, although you'll never see me be the uniform police, if you will. Kind of curious why there's a gap here. Somebody was doing something where they ran all of the Eagle required badges down here, and then they were leaving some room here for other badges. So that's a little wonky how it came out. But again, I got a pile for that. Some more neckerchiefs. Here's one from the 57 Jamboree. That might be interesting to see if whoever the Explorer dad was went to the 57. And this one's a little different. Let's see what's going on here. So we have a one that's got patches from the 1950s. And these are showing that Onondaga Council, Kaw Council, Camp Nash. I think that is in Kansas, and this is from Detroit. I think that's from New York. So there's a little bit of stuff going on here. I'm not sure if the person maybe was in multiple areas. Again, we knew we'd see a tan shirt. The good thing about tan shirts for me is I'm able to recycle these back to Scouts today. Some people call them now the brown buttons. I never would have thought that's what we would call these, but this is very clearly, 1980s. This is what my uniform looked like with the red epaulets when I was going through the program. But essentially today, Scouts wear tan uniforms, and so there's no reason why a Scout today, especially one who was trying to be thrifty and save money, could not wear this uniform. They would just have to swap out the patches, which they all go in the same place. You don't have to swap out the American flag. That hasn't changed. Now, yes, in 2025, this strip now says Scouting America, but again, not a big deal. You might even be able to find a replacement strip here in the future to cover that up. But you can see that this Scout went to Philmont in 1984. again, perfectly dates this uniform. And this was a Thomas Edison Council in New Jersey, so we know exactly where that was from. Not surprised that a scout would have two shirts. This one has a star rank. If I was to guess, maybe this is the one he eventually grew into or grew out of, depending on his size. And then, of course, we're going to have that same time period. Here's a pair of scout pants. I actually really like this style. The modern pants they make for the scouts are kind of made of, sort of thin wicking material that maybe dries quickly. But if you want something that looks nicer that you would wear to a court of honor, I would definitely go with those, and that's what I generally wear. All right, so we can see this handful of patches here. I already see off the top there's a couple of Philmont patches. These are from the 1950s, and so when you went to Philmont in the 1950s, this is what you got. Some people call these sort of the 50-cent piece patches. There's not a lot of varieties here, so this same patch was earned by almost everybody. So there's a lot of those around. South Jersey Council Camper, again, I think that looks like the older patches from the 50s and the modern patches were all in the New Jersey. Treasure Island, that's in Philadelphia. Then you can see someone was trading because they got an Orange Empire Council, and that's from all the way out in California. Here's one from San Francisco. Oh, here's one from South Carolina. They traded for a 1956 camperee from South Carolina. NRA patches, you see a lot of those. South Jersey, Valley Forge, Camp Delmont, that's kind of a famous camp in Scouts. And then again, we saw the 57 neckerchief, so I'm not at all surprised to see a pair of 57 Jamboree patches in mint condition. And then here's a Grand Valley Council contingent patch to the 57 Jamboree. And then this is always interesting to me because I am a big collector of senior scouting. This is the universal patch for explorers back in the 1950s, and that's an apprentice rank patch for explorers. Then this is one little slice we see of Detroit. This is a lodge in Detroit that no longer exists, but it was from the southwestern Michigan. Well, that'd be cool. Somebody might have been on camp staff. These are sort of generic. I don't know. I guess they probably sold them in the Boy Scout catalog for camp staff, but they were meant to be worn on a neckerchief. And if you had a round patch for your camp, it would fit underneath it. And I see these in different colors. So there's a 56, a 57, and a 58. So again, these are kind of universal items that are not specific to a certain camp unless you find them on a neckerchief. But I think that's pretty cool. Some patrol patches here. Another OA patch from Lodge 107. Shift Scout Reservation. I can tell what the guy was doing. So this is a National Junior Leader Training Camp held at Shift, which would make sense. Shift was in New Jersey. And this is where a lot of scouts and scouters went to get trained. Especially I've seen professional scouts went there for development. These patches, I probably have 100 of each of these. They are just so common. This one, however, is a little more interesting to me. Then this little beaver guy, I have no idea. And if I thought this was a Canadian patch, I could say it's a beaver patch, but I don't know what that is. GRC, Camp Levine, Conservation. Chappaget Lodge, that's a lodge that doesn't exist anymore. Another one there. Oh, this is cool. This will definitely be one that goes in my permanent collection. Explorer Rendezvous, 1957 Dover Air Force Base. So I collect senior scouting, and I love to get these event patches, especially when they have a connection to the military. And then here's some lodge flaps. All of these have been worn from Lodge 107, which matches the patch we saw just a minute ago. All right, so I think the last thing here, before I get into the box, is we're going to have this big, wonderful, and we can tell who this is from. This is the guy from the 1980s, because look at all these 1985 Diamond Jubilee patches. So got his Philmont bull. This is a nice red wool jacket. Put that to the side. And then the sort of one that we're curious about is what's in here. My guess, just because it has a jingle, is that this is going to be neckerchief slides. So let's see, because if you were a scout in the 1950s, you definitely would have had neckerchief slides. If you were a scout in the 1980s, you would have had skill awards, and we really haven't seen any of that yet. So, all right, well, there's a little surprise. There are some more patches here, some event patches from that Thomas Edison Council, which is what we saw on his uniform, including a district patch, and then here's his classic Philmont arrowhead. So we know that he went to Philmont in 1984 based on the patch, so that all matches up. Then here's some council shoulder patches. These are all sort of the modern ones. And then there are some slides in here, including ones from Philmont and from Schiff, again, matching what we've already seen. And then there's some breakables here. Let's see how well they survived. Oh, I thought they were breakables. Actually, they are medals. These are called trail medals. And you would have gotten these for hiking trails I can use Google to kind of figure out where these were, but the Witch Trail, and there's Gettysburg, and the President's Trail, and there's Colonial Annapolis, and so these were really popular things for scouts to do with their troop, is to go hike these trails, and usually there was a requirement you had to fulfill in order to get the medal, whether it was filling out a scavenger hunt form or doing a service project or something. You just get that for nothing. Here's a coffee mug that survived the trip. Looks like they had it well packaged, and not surprisingly, it's a Philmont coffee mug. Quality unit. This is a religious emblem award. Again, some nice little cool Philmont slides. A couple of loose merit badges. And then the last thing is going to be a little Kyle, maybe Philmont. No, I wouldn't have thought that. Snuffy Hollow Camperee, 1986. Cool beans. All right, so there's the collection. Tried to share it all with you. Interesting, had two different generations here. My guess would be a dad and a son. Very cool to see. Love getting some old stuff and love seeing a family collection. Thank you again for watching the video. If you have a box like this, whether it be from a loved one or from your time in scouting, reach out to me. Go to my website, scoutpouchcollectors.com. There you can find all my contact information. You can call me, text me, email me. Love to talk to you about your scouting story, and if you're interested, help you recycle your scouting memorabilia and get it back into the movement. Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper. Thanks for watching.